Division details. This video is meant to help you avoid mistakes and give you a heads up about a few special circumstances that you might find as we practice division in class in the next couple weeks. So let's talk about 4 special cases. The first one is when the divisor is bigger than the first digit of the dividend. So let's look at this example, and then we're going to have actually 3 ways that you can deal with this special circumstance. So you see that my divisor is 8, and the first digit of my dividend is a 3. This 8 is bigger than the 3. So the first question we always ask ourselves is, how many times can 8 go into 3? Well, it can't really go into 3. So one way that you can deal with this is still do every step like you've been taught to do. So 8 goes into 3 no times. We can't make a group of 8 out of 3. And then we would just carry on like usual. I'm going to do this step I'm going to go ahead and solve the problem kind of quickly. So 0 times 8 is 0. I subtract and get 3. I would bring down the 4. Then 8 would go into 34 4 times. 4 times 8 is 32. I would subtract and bring down the 2. 8 can go into 22 2 times. 8 times 2 is 16. And I would get a remainder of 6. So I really just went ahead and did everything like normal, just putting a 0 there and multiplying the 0 because 8 cannot go into 3. Well, another way that you can do that is just use a 0 as a placeholder and not actually do this step of 0 times 8. So let's see what that looks like. If I put a 0 here to remind myself that 8 can't go into 3, I don't need to go ahead, I don't have to do the 0 times 8, subtract and bring down, because look, this 34 just ends up staying 34. So I'm still going to have to ask myself, how many times does 8 go into 34? So instead of asking about 8 into 3, I'm asking about 8 into both of those numbers at one time. Just make sure you put that 0 there to hold your place so that you know what number you're dividing into. It's going to become very important when we divide by decimals, so you want to go ahead and get in the habit of doing that. So you could use a 0 as a placeholder and then just carry on as normal. 8 goes into 34 2 times. 8 times 2 is, 3 times. 4 times. 8, I have to count, say my multiple is 8. 8, 16, 24, 32. 4 times 8 is 32. And then I would just finish the problem like normal from right here. The third way that you can deal with having a divisor that's bigger than the first digit of your dividend is to scoot over one digit. You can say, can 8 go into 3? No, it can't. So I'm going to go ahead and think about 8 times 34 and put my answer here above the 4 and know that it's sort of like an invisible 0 that's right there. 8 can go into 34 4 times. Just be sure you're putting that 4 over the digit that you, over the second digit, because you're dividing into 34. Like I said, when we do division of decimals, this will become very important. Then you'll do 4 times 8 is 32 and finish the problem just like you did over here. The next case, something that you might run into, is when you get a difference bigger than the divisor. So let's look at an example. This person was doing 682 divided by 8, and they said that 8 can go into 68 7 times. Then they multiplied 7 times 8 is 56 and got a difference of 12. Now whenever you see a difference, after you've subtracted, a difference that is bigger than your divisor, if your difference is bigger than your divisor, you have made a mistake. That's because if you have 12 left over, you need to think that I could have taken out another group of 8. I took out too few. So we would need to bump up this number one more, because I can count, if you're counting by 8s, I could count by one multiple of 8 higher. So let's count by 8s and try it. 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48. After 48 comes 56, and then 8 times 8 would be 64. So we can go all the way up to 64 without going over that 68. So we would need to realize we made a mistake and change that 7 to an 8. Then we would do 8 times 8 is 64. subtract, and finish the problem like normal. Bring down the 2, and then 8 can go into 42 5 times, because 8 times 5 is 40, and then I would have a remainder of 2. So watch out for differences that end up that are bigger than your divisor. Realize you've made a mistake if you do that. The next special case is when you are dividing into 0. Let's see how that happens here and what to do about it. So we are doing 804 divided by 4. We found that 4 went into 8 2 times. Then we multiplied 2 times 4 is 8, and we got 0. Then we are bringing down a 0. It's important to know that you still have to do how many times does 4 go into 0. Don't lose a step and just bring down another number. Sometimes people say, oh, I've got zeros, and they would just bring down the next 4. You have to divide into that 0. And remember that 0 divided by any number is just 0. Let's see why that makes sense. If you had $0 and you wanted to share among 5 friends, each of your friends is going to get $0. If you had 100 friends and you had no money, everybody's going to get no money. So no matter how many you're trying to divide 0 into, you still always have none. So you have to still say 4. How many times does 4 go into 0? Well, it goes in 0 times. 0 times 4 is 0, 0, and then I can bring down the 4. Then I can bring down the 4. So make sure you show that you divide it into 0 here. 4 can go into 4 one time. 1 times 4 is 4, and I have a remainder of 0. And finally, sometimes the calculator doesn't match what you think the answer would be. So someone did this problem here, and then they decided, I'm not really sure I want to check my work with the calculator. And when they typed in 682 divided by 8, they got 85 and 2500ths, and then they went, yikes, I don't really know if that's the same as my answer. So, well, let's look what the calculator's doing. The calculator doesn't know how to do remainders, and it wants to get an exact answer. So if you think about money, this is $682 divided by 8 people. This is saying that our answer, when we did it long division, we said that every person, each of those 8 people got $85, and there were $2 left over. And we were okay with just having a remainder of 2. Well, the calculator's not okay with having $2 left over. So the calculator thought, how can I divide $2 among 8 people? Well, it knows that $1 can be broken up into 4 quarters, and $1 can be broken up into 4 quarters. And so if you're dividing 8 quarters by 8 people, each person is going to get 25 cents. And that's why we have here the 2500ths to represent that each person is getting a quarter. And you're going to see later that it doesn't always divide this evenly into quarters, into amounts of money that we know. And we're going to learn how to turn a remainder into an exact decimal. But for now, until we learn those things, if you want to check your work with a calculator, just compare the whole number part of the answers. So if you see that you have 85 here and 85 before the decimal here, you can estimate that your answer is reasonable. If you get something different for your whole numbers, then you might want to go back and check your work here until you get it to match what you find on the calculator.